Thank you for tuning in and welcome back, team. Have you ever wondered that if you own like a second property or third property, so you own like rental property, if there's a way that you can sell those properties and defer your taxes? There is a way, and it's called a 1031 tax exchange. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the 4 basics of a 1031 tax exchange to get your mind primed on this so you can start asking great questions of your CPA, tax attorney, what have you, to better assist you in deferring your taxes to save you some money. My name is Andrew Finney, your real estate geek. If you need help finding a top agent where you live, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. For reference, I upload 6 days a week, so be sure to tap the bell icon to be notified of the very next video. Thank you. Okay, team, so let's talk about these 4 points. This is really interesting because a lot of you have been asking me about 1031 tax exchanges, how they work, what they pertain to. So for the first video on my channel that we've started talking about this, I want to make sure that we lead in with something basic with the 1031 tax exchange, and we can expound later based upon your questions and feedbacks in the comment section below, okay? So the first one is, what are 1031 tax deferred exchanges and how do they work, right? So a 1031 tax exchange is also known as like a like and kind exchange. Now that's the key term there, like and kind exchange of an asset, typically real estate, right? Obviously we're talking about real estate, it's a real estate channel, and it is sold and the proceeds are then reinvested in a like and kind asset. Notice that we keep coming back to that word, like and kind. Hold on to that thought because we'll talk about it in point 3 a little bit more with an example of how that works, okay? So by conducting this kind of an exchange, an individual like you, right, will not recognize any losses as gains underneath the Section 1031. So Section 1031, what is the Section 1031? Well, it's actually a tax code. And guess what section it is? 1031. So that's why we call it the 1031 tax exchange. If you've been wondering where did this term even come from, right? It's just part of the tax code. So capital gains taxes are deferred until the property is sold and not exchanged, right? So there's 5 basic principles we want to take a look at here. Number 1, the exchange property must be identified within 45 days. So there is a definitive time limit. So in other words, you got to identify the property you want to use your net proceeds that you don't want to be taxed on, and you got to identify that property within 45 days of the sale of that property. Second point is all the proceeds of the initial sale must be reinvested into the like and kind property within 6 months or 180 days. So if you're following along here, you sell that property, let's say that you're going to reinvest, maybe you made a lot of money on the first multi-unit property that you have, or you have a single family residence, you want to reinvest it into a different type of rental property, right? So what happens is you have 45 days to identify that property once you've closed on that property. The second is you have 180 days to actually make that investment. Otherwise, you're about to pay taxes on that money. So what's the best practice for that? Well, think about it, right? You need to be in the buying mode before you get your property on the market and start identifying beforehand so that you don't run out of time whenever the time comes due, okay? The third point here is when exchanging property, you must do so like and kind. There's that word again. Real property has to be exchanged with real property, not personal property. So keep that in mind. It has to be real property. In other words, it has to be real estate. You can't trade it out for a boat. You can't trade it out for a car. You can't trade it out for an airplane. It has to be real property. Number 4, 1031 exchanges can only take place with investment property, a commercial property, or personal property or trade property. No personal residences. So if you're thinking of using a 1031 tax exchange and you're saying, oh, I'm going to cash out my investments, I'm going to go buy a beautiful home on an island somewhere, right? And that's in the United States, and I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to defer my taxes into that property, but it's going to be my primary residence. Not going to work, buddy. So go ahead and dispel that one. Of course, if you feel the need to go ahead and talk to a 1031 tax exchange professional, probably the best idea. Just for reference, I am not a 1031 tax exchange professional. However, I've done research on this and I've been learning all about this to better make this video for you guys. So it's been interesting too. So thank you for the comments about asking me to do this video. So number 5 is a Section 1031 does not apply to exchanges of inventory, stocks, bonds, notes, or other securities or evidence of indebtedness or certain other assets. In other words, you can't trade out your stock in your stock market portfolio, your mutual funds, your IRA, and everything else underneath the 1031 tax exchange. Again, it circles back. It has to be real property with like and kind property. So whenever you're looking at using a 1031 tax exchange, there's something called a qualified intermediary. With a qualified intermediary, what they do is they exist to help you, individuals and businesses, execute 1031 exchanges of all kinds.
You can find a directory of those companies in the show more description below this video so that you can go ahead and get started at asking them the questions and see how this is going to work out in your situation. Number 2 in this episode, four basics, right? Second basic, 1031 exchange example. So if you invested in a property and you decide to sell, let's say that you invested in that property for, let's call it a duplex. Let's say that you had a duplex and you bought that duplex for $100,000 7 years ago. So now you're saying, my duplex is now worth $200,000. I want to go ahead and cash it out. So if you invest the $200,000 into another investment property, maybe you're going from a duplex to a quadplex, or maybe you're buying your first 5-plex or 10-plex with that money, right? Through a 1031 tax exchange, you will not have to pay any capital gains on those taxes after the sale. So that's pretty interesting. So you could actually roll all that equity that you got as an investor into another property, again, like in kind, rental property in this case, right? Like in kind, to be used to upgrade your investment portfolio. Very helpful stuff there. So the third basic is sorted 1031 tax exchange resources. So here's a list of resources that I'm going to put in the show more description below, just kind of prime your thought process of what it is. So we're going to have a 1031 exchange discussion forum. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm going to give you a link so that you can conduct an interview with a tax deferred exchange expert and qualified intermediary called William Exeter, right? The third is the Federation of Exchange Accommodators, okay? The fourth is the field guide to 1031 exchange. There's going to be a lot of information. Obviously, a field guide is always chock full of information. Then you're going to have the fifth, realestateexchange.com. Go figure somebody would get savvy and put a .com on a real estate exchange, right? So think about that. The fourth point and the fourth basic today is a list of qualified 1031 intermediaries. The first one is the 1031 Exchange Services Incorporated. The second is All States 1031 Exchange Facilitator. The third is the Asset Preservation Incorporation. The fourth, going back to Mr. Exeter, is Exeter 1031 Exchange Services. And number 5 is Starker Services. Now you may be able to find other qualified intermediaries and exchange resources, but these are the ones that I'm putting out in today's episode. I'll make as many of those links available in the show more description as possible. Go ahead and feel free to use them. If you have conducted a 1031 tax exchange in the past, or you're currently in the process of doing so, what I would like you to do is to share how the process is working for you in the comment section below, along with any other questions you have about today's episode. Now, if you want me to drill down on some more things to do with 1031 tax exchanges, please tell me specifically what you're looking for, and I can go ahead and research those topics, talk to the professionals that I know that handle this kind of stuff, and be able to make this video for you so that it'll better answer your questions. So go ahead and put that stuff in the in the comment section below. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop up my contact information. If you have any questions for me, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hi, please feel free to reach out to me. I always love to hear from you and help you, okay? Now, if you haven't already done so, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. Number 1, please subscribe to this channel. Number 2, please like this video. And number 3, please share it around with someone you know it's going to be able to help. Because just like you, I'm sure you can think of just one other person that would like to get the basics of a 1031 exchange down. Thank you so much. Now, in between now and next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. Thank you for watching today, team, and enjoy an amazing day.